I'm Sarah Donoghue and welcome to another Madder Maxx. And yes, you've guessed it, we've got loads of alternative motorsports coming up.
As you've probably gathered, I'm a big fan of oval racing, but there is nothing anywhere which matches the power and noise of the Formula One stock cars. There is one significant difference between oval racing and all other forms of motorsport. The more successful drivers are placed at the back of the grid and not the front. This means that they have to work their way through the novice drivers to get to the front and take the checkered flag first. Watching and taking part are two very different things, and there is no way you would get me into one of these things with 20 other nutters. Let's meet a man who would though, Formula One stock car driver, Chris Lloyd.
I've always been and watched it and took part in it with my dad, who used to do it 20 odd years ago. It's the sheer power of the cars. You've got 700 horsepower and there's no comparison to having such a quick car, plus it's contact sport as well.
Does it get very aggressive out on track? I mean,
it can do, yeah, it can do.
I mean, I know it carries on from meeting to meeting.
Yeah.
Does it ever carry on into the pits though?
No, there's never any fighting or anything like that in the pits. It never goes on like that. It's just you're in your own car and you're your own man out on the track, and when you're out on the track, it doesn't matter how big you are, you're all the same size.
Can you take us through some of the technical aspects of the car?
It's got a 510 Chevy big block with 720 brake horse. It's a Donoghue racing gearbox from America, which we can change the gears in quick time if we need to for different sizes of track.
A Formula One stock car racing looks a very expensive sport to be involved in. What kind of budget do you set aside for an annual season's racing?
You spend as much as you can afford, really. Your tyres are the main thing at £80 odd each, and you could probably strip a tyre in a full meeting. You know, so you're looking at probably 150 quid on a meeting. It's a great track, Ennisford. It helps you a lot more around the bends because of the banking. Plus there's plenty of room as well, so there's a lot of room for mistakes, but it is fast, and you just got to keep yourself to yourself and just get your head down and keep going.
Now, sitting on top of your car is a bright red roof and two flashing amber lights, which means you're very good at being a Formula One stock car driver, but it also means that you start right at the back of the grid. Do you have to adopt any particular tactics during a race?
Well, being at the back is a lot more of an advantage. It may not think it is, but you can relax for probably a lap until everybody sort of sorts itself out and you can see what's happening all the time. So you've got a bit of breathing space, and then once after a lap you just start picking them off and getting your way through the grid.
Let's see some of these cars in action. Formula One stock cars can reach speeds of over 80 miles per hour down those straights. Now that may not sound much considering the power output, but remember that this is an aggressive and full contact motorsport. Very few drivers in the UK make a living out of Formula One racing. Chris, like many of the drivers, is extremely dedicated to his sport, spending in excess of 20 hours per week keeping this car running. All this on top of a full-time job. Let's go back to Chris and find out how his race went. Chris, we spoke to you earlier. It's been a bit of a hectic day and not as successful as you would have wished.
Just one of them things, I think. It's just not gone right at all today.
Just couldn't get in.
It was just a case of, it's such a big track, and the way the smashes went off, it just didn't go right for me. I took the wrong way and ended up in the fence and just couldn't get going.
If you do have a bad day, how hard is it to bounce back? Or do you spend the week thinking, if I'd have done this, if I'd have done that?
I never really think at all, to be truthful. You've either got the luck on the day or you haven't. So you just take every day as it comes. At the end of the day, it's a sport that we all enjoy, and if you win, it's a bonus. If you lose, try again next time.
I always enjoy meeting people who are dedicated to their sport, and meeting Chris was no exception. He may not have got the results he wanted today, but Chris will be back out there for more next time. Good luck to him for the rest of the season.
thought about life in the fast lane? Well, it doesn't come much faster than offshore powerboat racing. This week we'll be looking at two different classes of powerboat racing. 2 litre offshore and the V24 one design, and we'll also be meeting up with some of the racers. There are many different classes of powerboat racing, but if we look specifically at this country and also offshore racing, we have Class 1, which travel at around speeds of 150 to 160 miles an hour, Class 2, which are just off the pace of the Class 1s, and Class 3 consists of 4 litre, 2 litre and 1.3 litre. Now, a new class has emerged, the V24 one design class. Let's meet Mike Mantle. You've got quite a history of powerboat racing. I mean, you've won the Cows Classic twice.
It took a long time to get there. I started way back before you were even thought of. I started in Class 3 racing and progressed on to 2 and then 1. And I've spent time as a navigator, as a driver. I even co-drove in a ski racing boat once, which is about the most scary thing because you face backwards.
Mike, can you tell us a little bit about the design of this boat?
It uses a Volvo Penta 5.7 litre V8. It's a multi-stepped hull with little wings on it.
Do you think the wings actually give it lift? Do they work, or is it just sort of a feature of the design?
The effect is that it's a bit like a paper dart. If you drop a paper dart and it's been properly folded and made, it'll always find a level and try and fly off. The wings help create directional stability and also squash the air underneath them so the boat doesn't rock too much. So yes, they do work. Makes the boat quite fast for its size. Good recovery in rough water. It's really built for offshore racing, so it's not the fastest for the hull configuration. It should do between 75 and 80 miles an hour, and we've had mainly a lot of fun. There are 2 boats of this design racing at the moment, and we're ahead by virtue of the fact that the other one is still under development. But the best thing about racing is you race with all the other boats, and you can prove yourself against bigger and faster boats sometimes with a good rough water boat.
There are many different ways of balancing a race boat to get the optimum speed. Of course, you've got engine trim and engine lift, but you've also got a ballast tank at the front of the boat, which fills with water, adding weight. It's far more challenging to race a boat than it is to drive a car. Remember, the sea is the world's most unpredictable surface, and what is 80 miles an hour on water is the equivalent of double to triple on land. The diverse nature of powerboat racing means that their engines can range from an outboard Merc XR2 to a couple of Lamborghinis, producing more horsepower than its road equivalent. For me, powerboat racing is by far the best sport. It's fun, it's fast, and it's full of men.
During this series of Madder Maxx, we've looked at many different kinds of motorsport, but today we've come to look at what is probably the world's oldest, and we've also come to one of the world's oldest motor racing venues. This is hill climbing. We're at Shelsley Walsh, an event that has been described as the Monaco of the hill climbing calendar. For over 100 years, the motoring greats have competed here, from Sir Malcolm Campbell, Stirling Moss, Peter Collins and Hans Stuck. The rules are simple. Almost any car can enter, from production Porsches and Ferraris to ex-Formula One cars. The drivers are timed between 2 points, one at the bottom of the hill and one at the top. Now, charging up a hill in a car may sound easy, but when you realise how narrow and steep this particular hill is, you realise what a difficult sport this can be. With the steep gradient and sharp bends on the course, outright speed isn't as important as grip and acceleration. The top cars will hit 60 miles per hour in under 2 seconds and cross the finish line at over 135. I'm here with David Grace, arguably one of the most successful men in British hill climbing. Hello, David.
Hi, Dougie. How are you?
I'm fine. Now, you're sitting here in what many people would obviously mistake for a Formula One racing car, which it isn't. I mean, we'll talk about the car in a minute, but how long has it taken you to get to this point, and how did you get here?
Well, it's taken me 20 years, really. I started 20 years ago in a very relatively cheap car, 50 quid I think the engine cost, and we spent about £500 on the chassis, and I've just been working at it. I was very successful in that, and we made it go quicker, and I sold it and got a better car, and slowly but surely you work yourself up to the ultimate hill climb car. Can you give us a rough breakdown of your successes, and don't be modest? Well, I've won the hill climb championship 4 times, and I'm going for my 5th this year, so I'm trying to win it for a 5th time. I held records at various hills, outright hill records at various hills in the country. I've won, I can't remember the number of actual runoffs I've won, but it must be in the 40s, something like that.
What is it about hill climbing that keeps you so fascinated?
I think, the opportunity to drive something like this. I mean, this is a 600 horsepower, 500 kilogram racing car. It would out-drag a Formula One car off the line at Silverstone easy. They'd catch us eventually. So there's the opportunity to do that, which would be very expensive to do if you went circuit racing. The other thing is, it's about me and my other competitors, but they don't T-bone me and knock me off into the first corner. If they beat me because they drive better than I do.
The record for the hill is held by Richard Brown at 25.34 seconds. There is a prize of £1,000 for the person who breaks the 25-second barrier. Let's see if anyone's up to that task today. The event at Shelsley Walsh is part of the British Hill Climb Championship. At 2 points in the day, the 12 fastest people get to compete for championship points. This equates to 10 points for the fastest time and 1 point for the 10th fastest time. Let's meet Paul Matty, who races a different class of car. What is it about the sport of hill climbing that is so addictive, really, to you?
Several things. One of the major things is obviously the people involved, competitors, spectators, everybody. It's a real fun thing. It's a it's a sport that you can smell, feel. You can come up and touch the cars. The spectators can get right up and not sit inside, but they can touch them, which you can't in any other form of motorsport. The actual competitors, they do help each other. It's very, very competitive, very competitive. Of course, you're talking of, people trying to beat each other by hundreds and thousands of a second sometimes, which is absolutely brilliant. And it's a very demanding sport. Straight out off the line, you've got to be 10 tenths, and it does focus the mind. When you get back to work after a weekend's hill climbing, you feel as if you've been on holiday for a week. What
kind of times and speeds do you get up to on that hill?
Shelsley is obviously a very, very demanding hill. It's one of the best in the UK, really. There's an element of danger which sort of makes you sit a little higher in the seat. The big boys, the big cars are 130 over the line, 135.
Well, you're going to show us what it's all about, so we'll get this camera fixed to your car.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Now I can understand every single aspect of this sport, the technical side and the attraction it must hold for the drivers. But as a spectator and as a motor racing fan, I just don't get it. But what do I know? I don't like rallying either.